what propelled me into my soul searching a decade ago, I was dead inside. I call it my Walking Dead years.
Shirin Etessam is an entrepreneur, seasoned media executive, and transformational speaker. She has produced films and original television series for big companies like Facebook, Apple, Virgin, and she's a founder of OML TV, a popular platform dedicated to streaming and curating quality queer female video content. Hello and welcome to the Write the Book Inside You podcast. Tips, tools, and interviews for coaches and healers like you who want to write a non-fiction book to boost your visibility, clients, and cash flow while making a difference. I'm your host, Carol Westmore, a multi-published author and energy psychology tapping book coach. Now let's jump into today's episode. So, as well as being in the film industry, something must have happened in your life, Shirin, because you're here today to talk about your book, Free to Be. So I would like to hear about the transition or what made you write the book inside you, which this surely is. Tell us about that.
It's been an interesting process. And first and foremost, thank you for having me on your show. I definitely had a book in me, and I didn't realize that I had a book in me. What propelled me into my soul searching a decade ago was a big breakup that I had at the end of 2013 and it made me realize that I wasn't just dealing with a broken heart. Everything was broken. And it's weird because I had all of the worldly goods. From the outside, it looked really good. I had the lofty titles, I had the homes, I had the cars, I had even the community and the friends and a beautiful partner and 2 kids. I was dead inside. I call it my Walking Dead years. And I was like, what is this about? Like, why? Yes. Okay. Grieving over a loss of a relationship, which is, devastating enough, but nothing felt right. And I had kind of fallen into this abyss. I certainly didn't set out at that time to write a book, but I wanted to write my own new book. I didn't want just a new chapter because the people are like, oh, okay, well, new chapter. And I was like, I don't want a chapter. I want a whole new book. So in rewriting my own story, which really took me about 6 years, and I realized that if I knew what I was doing at the time, the 6 years of what I call bobbing for spiritual apples could really be distilled into 6 weeks. And so I wrote the book. And I also wrote it because my background is in film and TV and the agency world. I needed street cred, in this world. It's like, I frankly don't know. I mean, I sit on a lot of panels. I've given keynotes and such, but it's all been within the realm of media. It hasn't been in the world of self-transformation. So in some ways, it really became my calling card. I needed to put some sort of stake in the ground. My background wasn't as a monk or as a physician or as a therapist or as a personal coach. So much like a Jen Sincero or Mark Manson, it was sort of, I had an aha moment, decided to write about it, and everything has unfolded since.
Okay. So we'll get into that, but I would like to know, the writing process, as we seem to be talking, about film and media, and how different was it to write a book? Reading your book, and we'll get into the daily purge, I get the impression that you're quite a visceral person, or I think, is that the right word, that you like to walk and swim and dance as one of your actions rather than just sit and, contemplate. So how did writing the book fit into that? Did you write every day? Did you take time off? Tell us about your writing process.
So very interesting and very different, because I've written scripts for films and TV series or TV specials. I found it to be much more intimate and much more intimidating, maybe because it was long format. It was also I mean, I've done both in film and TV. I've done both. Writing the book, it's interesting because I think that the work that I did on myself actually helped in becoming really intentional, in that I knew part of the work that I've done on myself is really realizing our monkey minds, the gremlins in our minds. I've learned what to do with those gremlins, with the monkey mind, which is week one of my book. But all to say that I really needed to tell my monkey mind to shut the F up so I could do the work that I do. And I think that is probably the biggest obstacle that writers face, is that chatter. I was in the sound booth recording my book.
Yes.
And even then, it was just like, oh my God, why did you write this sentence this way?
Yes.
Who's going to listen to that? Just chat, chat, chat. And I'm constantly like, shut the F up and sit in the corner. I have work to do. So with that in mind, tried to get out of my own way as much as possible. And I also committed to writing a chapter a month. I outlined it, and I knew that I wanted it to be in 6 weeks, and I wanted each chapter to be 6 weeks, not including the intro. And I did that. So I woke up January 1, 2021, and I was like, here we go. So I did it January through June. And right around June, I started reaching out to agents. And by July, I had 2 agents who were interested, and I picked one, and it went from there. And by the end of the year, by the end of 2021, we had sold the book.
I think your daily purge process may be a kickoff point. Did you, you said it took a month, but did you write every morning? You obviously had a structure, which is good because you knew to do that.
From the beginning, I worked with 3 different editors. Just because I didn't want to be in my head as I was writing it. I also, toward the end, I had a test group, mostly to see if the daily exercises that I have, resonate with people. So there was help along the way in formulating it. And the reason for that is that I was writing a how-to book for others. So I wanted to make sure that it was actually resonating. If 2 or more people said the same thing, I knew that there was something that was off, that was common.
Let's start with week 1. And I think you could say it's about the monkey mind. Well, okay, first tell us what the 6 weeks, go through each week, and then we'll go into week 1 if we can. So because you're starting, okay, what I like about it is you're starting with the spiritual audit that we are to be living are we living from the inside out as opposed to the outside in? And then you go on to look at the different facets of us, am I right? That will need a purging and a reinventing, really, in some cases.
Well, so yes, and everything is written very intentionally and structured the way it is intentionally. So it has to be experienced chronologically. And the reason for that is that, you hear people say, follow your bliss or follow your heart, following your heart is a misnomer.
As I wrote that there. Follow your heart or follow your soul. I forgot that there.
Exactly.
I'm going to get to that.
But when people say that, it's like, follow your bliss. It's like, how? Most people don't even know what their bliss is. And they think a bliss is like going on vacation, which is great, or, buying something new, or, Instagram, living my best life, which it's kind of superficial. So, and there's a lot of talk about disassociation at a young age. They say between 0 and 5 or 0 and 7, we disassociate from our true selves, which I believe is our inner core, our inner star, our soul. So we spend a lifetime moving away from that inner core of us. And then someone says, follow your bliss. Well, how do you get to it? How do you know what it is? So the first part of the book, the first 3 weeks, are about decluttering and detoxing your mind, your heart, and your body to do that. So in week 1, I talk about it's all about the mind and how to declutter it and detox it. Week 2 is all about the heart, how to take care of it and how to protect it and who's allowed in and who's not.
Mm-hmm.
Week 3 is all about detoxing the body, but not just the physical body. It's really about resetting our relationship with the only vessel we have through this life. I call it our Uber ride through life, and how we need to maintain it and really shift our relationship, because we're not often, we either ignore it or we're not nice to it. And so once you have that clearing, hopefully at that point, you will be much closer to your soul and you'll feel it. And there's ways that I talk about that, you're connected with your soul. Then it's like, well, what do you do with it?
Yeah, could you give us some indication? How do we know that it's our soul leading us and not our heart, that we are connected? Let's say we're working through the book. What is the instruction you give to know if you're coming from your soul?
So there's a few different ways. Musicians call it being in the flow.
Yes.
It's that knowing. It's interesting because the times that I know that I'm not following my true north and my soul now, because I feel like I'm so intentional, is when I'm off of it. It's like my guardrails. Like when I'm off of it, I'm like, okay. Otherwise, I feel like I'm so in it. And it really is about that feeling of knowing and that feeling of wholeness. Like I now, and it's been 4.5 years, where I feel complete onto myself. Like I call it the tribe of me, and I talk about it in the book. So heart, mind, body, soul in relationship with my higher power, as I call it
Yes.
Jesus, the all there is, whatever it is. So it is alignment. It's the way that you, like when you meet somebody and you instantly know that there's a connection there. You have a gut feeling about something and it just feels right. Imagine living a life where it's like that almost all the time, because you're so intentional and you're so in your flow and you're so in your purpose.
So for me, that comes from my quiet time in the morning and my sort of routine, which is a quiet routine, of reflection, writing, and meditating, if you like, or quiet time. For you, does it come after your daily purge, after you've made sure you've dumped or Julia Cameron calls it the brain dump? You call it the daily purge. You've dumped out any worrying thoughts. But what I quite find interesting, do you set a timer? Because you say 6 minutes. How do you get into alignment, you yourself? Is it through meditation? That's one question. Do you meditate?
Yeah, so I do meditate, and I do a variety of meditations. I do the traditional meditations. I also have gotten into doing breath work if I'm too stressed out. So I do not just breathing exercises, but breath work. And that I can do to either fully relax or energize myself. But it's also, I spent a week learning transcendental meditation. I've meditated with Zen Buddhists, I've gone silent meditations and such. It's important to point out that one doesn't need to do all of that. So I am comfortable meditating because I have been practicing it for many, many years. But the 6 minutes really is, could you do it for 5 minutes and get the benefits? Probably. But 6 minutes at a minimum, so that you are allowing yourself that time to just purge negativity. And you mentioned Julia Cameron, and it's absolutely, I mean, I did her book, her process 20 some years ago religiously.
Yeah, me too.
And what I've noticed with a lot of people, like a lot of people aren't comfortable doing the traditional meditations of, lotus writing. Even for them, it's much easier to go outside and shake it off and start, speaking to the sky, the sun, the stars, whatever it is. or dancing about or going for a run, as long as that run is intentionally set for purging. Like I'm going on a purge run. I'm doing a purge dance. I'm doing purge pirouettes, whatever that is, to get it out of you. And I think that is important to point out, because customizing one's practice is what actually enables us to integrate it into our day-to-day, much like going to the gym and working out,
I found that.
Therapist. It's not a one-off, and it's not here and there. It's in the practice of it.
Yes, correct. I like that.
Yes, the daily purge is every day. And I say that, like, if you don't do any of the exercises in the book, just do the daily purge. And again, just asking for 6 minutes of your time on a daily basis, I think it does wonders. And those who have done the process say that the daily purge, it's just easy. Done in the mornings, but you could do it really anywhere. I mean, I've purged when I'm, driving at a stop sign. So yes, that is the first part of the book. And then the second part of the book, week 4, is about playing, which I am a huge advocate of. And there are different ways of playing.
And I love the idea of playing, but I reckon I'm quite a serious person, and maybe my painting, or, there are times when I'm the creative player. But when I'm focused on a project, the only release I get is to go, swimming. I go down to the beach and swim in the afternoons, having worked in the morning on my writing. But I'd like you to explain to people who are new to play, because I think it is quite a difficult concept. We think we're playing on our, looking at Instagram or something, but we're not, are we? How do you define playing, and why is it so important?
So play at its core is unintentional. You're intentionally, unintentionally playing, in that you're setting the time. When you're a kid, you're not like, okay, I'm going to play now because it's going to make me feel better. You just do it because that's what comes out of you. That's just what you're propelled to do.
Now for a word from our episode sponsor. Every writer has faced the dreaded writer's block. But what if you had not just one, but 7 ways to shatter it? Introducing Bust Writer's Block Forever, 7 game-changing ways to kiss writer's block goodbye and unleash creative inspiration. Dive deep into transformative processes, the work of Byron Katie, Havening, EFT tapping, the journey, the alter ego effect for writers, internal family systems. And as a special treat, a bonus chapter on collaborating, even dancing with ChatGPT, your new creative catalyst. For those who've been inspired by The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, this book and accompanying video course at bustwritersblock.com will feel like coming home. Dive in at bustwritersblock.com. Now back to today's episode.
I was in Florida a couple of months ago, and I was watching these kids, and I was so envious. I mean, and I've learned how to play now, but like just the natural ability to play. And they were very focused on what they were doing, sandcastles, and they were digging something, and they were bringing waters, and there was pails, and each one had a task and all of that. And you knew that they were going to do that for the next half hour or whatever. And then the wave's going to come, and it wasn't about productivity. It wasn't about title. It was just being alive and creating and bonding and being in the moment. And that is why it's important, because again, from a very young age, we start learning that we have to live from the outside in rather than the other way around. So we're taking our cues from the outside rather than, oh, well, this feels good. I want to do more of it. And being able to cultivate that, so that becomes your go-to. To me, that is the beginning of living a life inside out, truly letting your soul out to play.
It sounds great when you talk about the kids, but how do adults do it? How do we do it?
For me, play looks many different ways. I play with my kids, which is easy. I play with my puppy or my cats, which are also easy because now my kids are teens, so it's not as easy. But with I can do it with friends. I do it with my wife. I do it on my own. On my own, I take dance breaks all the time. And when
Okay.
I was running a series for Discovery, I actually made the production assistant go out and get a disco ball globe. And we
Okay.
had it in the middle of we had like this open space. And anytime I felt the tension and the stress rising, and we were up against deadlines and all of that, it didn't matter if somebody was on the phone. I decided, and they knew it would come at any given time. I'd turn off all the lights. I'd start blasting disco with the disco ball going on, and we would dance our butts off up until the time I felt the energy change, and then I would just
Okay.
turn it on. And they were so used to it, and it was perfect. I mean, it was just so. That's dancing. That's dancing with my entire staff, and then we would go back to our, serious stuff and all of
Yeah.
that. So there's all sorts of different ways to dance. I mean, you could go to a playground and swing, or go on a slide. My wife and I, like, she's a wine executive and a baller in her own right, and we're doing the things that we do, and then we'll stop and we'll just be really goofy together. That could be like having a tickle fest, or we just have this like silly banter. And so many different ways to
Mm.
play, and there are other play types too.
Yes, now
So
that's what I want. Having put you on the spot about how you play, let's talk
yeah.
about the other people listening. You might say, "Well, that doesn't appeal to me." What could there be one of the 8 types you mentioned? And could you go through
Yeah,
those?
and you could one can be a combination of a
Okay.
few. Like, for example, one of the play types is explorer. I
Mm-hmm.
love traveling. I love exploring, and it could be in your own backyard or in your town, discovering something new. There's the collector who likes whether it's coins or stamps or whatever it is. That to them is a form of play. And then there's ones that I totally don't relate to, like the director. The director gets joy out of organizing and coordinating, like the ones who put on parties and stuff. Now, I
Okay.
think that I'm a great coordinator, but it does not bring me joy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
You don't
I
feel
don't
like
do
you're
it as
playing. Yeah. Yeah.
right. So you got to kind of know your personality, your play personality type, and figure out what that is, which I talk about in the book. Play is week 4, and then
Oh,
week 5 is all about finding your true north, and that's when I talk about the difference between soul and spirit. Soul being what is uniquely ours, spirit being whatever one believes in, higher energy, higher self, universal energy, Jesus, God, whatever that is, but getting in touch with that. And then week 6 is about rewriting one story. And that is rewriting one story from the inside out. And that has a lot to do with tapping into your raison d'etre, your reason for living.
yes.
And I actually have a Venn diagram for it,
Okay.
and how one can go about doing that. So it isn't like, hey, write your own story, go ahead and manifest. But it's like, okay, how? So it's very practical in that
Yeah,
way.
that's great. What is your intention by the end of the book?
By the end of the book, if I have done my job right, and whoever's reading it or listening to it really follows it, there really should be a sense of contentment and fulfillment truly just by being. So it
Mm.
isn't stripped away from there's I mentioned a scene in Francis Ford Coppola's film, The Black Stallion. And I think it is such a gorgeous scene in that, and I won't get into it, but the premise of the film is a horse and a boy who get stranded on an island together. They bond and form this friendship. And then he comes back, and he's trained as a jockey, and he learns all these rules and practice, all this stuff. and he's in front of a huge audience, and it's the biggest derby there is. Out of the gate, they stumble, and then he starts stripping himself of all the things that have weighed him down, everything that is told to him as far as what to do. So he strips back to his authentic self, and it's just him and his horse, and obviously they win. And I think that is, my hope is that is what people are left with at the end of the book. Do you do these 6 weeks and then you're set? You would be fooling yourself thinking that is the case with any process. It is all a journey. So I'm still unfolding and evolving and learning. And we say it's not a journey from here to there, it's a journey from here to here.
Yes.
It is, and it always is continuing. So in many ways, I'm hoping, much like Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, do you just do the process and it's done? No, it's in the active practice. And I would say daily practice of it. And hopefully the book will set you on your way.
Well, that's beautiful. And I think that's quite a good place to end, because we've gone all the way through. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to leave the listeners with?
Well, the only thing I would add to it is that I think that spirituality has had a bad rap, and I'm on the crusade of sorts to really redefine it. That when you talk about spirituality, you're really talking about spiritual health or spiritual wellness.
Yes.
And when you say spirituality, it often sounds too woo-woo, or it gets confused with religion. And what we're talking about truly is spiritual wellness. And in order to achieve spiritual wellness, it has to be integrated in our daily lives. If we are visiting it here and there, it's like visiting a gym here and there. You may feel good for the moment, but you're not going to get lasting results.
Tell us where we can find you and your book.
Find it on a variety of platforms. Amazon's probably the easiest. You just search Free to Be and it should pop up. It's called Free to Be, and Free to Be, a 6-week guide to reclaiming your soul.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me on today's podcast. Want a free gift to inspire you further on your book writing adventure? My free checklist, 5 book hook tips to kickstart your book writing journey, will help you get clarity on the key essentials to make your book a winner. Download it at writethebookinsideyou.com/free gift. The links are in the show notes. Until next time, a big virtual hug, and keep writing.